Hello, thesis writing friends. Today is September 23rd, and I was reading the New York Times this morning and found an article I thought would be interesting in the New York Times magazine section of the paper. And the article is called "Craving an Ice Cream Fix. Research shows that some foods really are addictive." And I thought this would be interesting to look at. I found it online, and it said that it was published on the 20th, so I'm not sure why that disagreement's there, but I guess it's possible it could be published online before the paper. So basically, I thought this would be an interesting thing for me to look at because I have food cravings all the time. I will be sitting there with friends, and all of a sudden I will say, oh my gosh, I really need a Carmelo bar. And I will not be happy until I get that Carmelo bar, and I will complain to my friends about this Carmelo bar until I finally get it. I could go to great lengths. I'd be sitting in my dorm, and I'd say, I really want this, and I could be in my pajamas, and I would go as far as changing and then go into the Otter Den to see if they have the Carmelo bar, and then if the Otter Den doesn't have it, then I would go to the library to find the Carmelo bar. So my friends kind of make fun of me for things like this all the time. I have other weird cravings like banana milkshakes from Dairy Queen and I don't know, other junk food type things. I do know a little bit about addiction, only bits and pieces from my general psych classes though, and not so much about the food aspect, more so of drug use and things like that. But basically this article was talking about the fact that addiction to food has been largely discredited by many experts in areas of nutrition and addiction, but there has been debate back and forth, and more recently there's been some studies refuting this idea. And this article is largely based on university and institutional research as well as expert testimony on the subject. What you take as expert and what someone else takes as expert might be different. It's probably important to check that these people are actually credible. But they do say doctor and PhD and things like that, so I would hope that they don't have a hidden agenda and that they're actually reporting legitimate facts. But basically, there's one particular study that was interesting to me at Princeton and the University of Florida, and they had these rats. They made them eat lots of sugar, and then they took away the sugar. And apparently the rats were showing opiate withdrawal-like effects and were having chattering teeth and shakes and things like that. And then they gave the rats the sugar back 2 weeks later, and they had to press the little lever bar to get the sugar, and they were doing it like crazy. And I think it was, they consumed 23% more sugar than before when they got it back. So that was one in particular that was supposed to be sort of supporting this food addiction hypothesis thing that these rats were addicted to the sugar. And there are some other studies in here too, but that's one that I found really interesting. And further, the article goes to talk about how actually this addiction that we're seeing or supposedly are seeing is linked to the type of food actually. Like, we tend to see that we are addicted to processed foods, man-made foods, and our body isn't biologically prepared to deal with these foods, and they call it hyperpalatable, and they really key in on what we are craving. So, if you really want something salty, you go for the super salty chips, and you wouldn't get that same salty effect from something naturally occurring, most likely. Just think about it. Like, we don't usually say, oh my gosh, I'm really craving some corn on the cob. I mean, you might hear it, but it's kind of weird. You're more likely to hear things like, oh my gosh, I really want some Oreos, or oh, I really want some candy, or oh, I really want a milkshake. Things that are man-made and artificial, or made up of artificial things and naturally occurring things. The research in this does seem to be credible. You do want to be careful when it comes to the journal-to-journalism cycle, and I don't know if you all know what that means, but basically the information reported in scientific journals is sometimes carried to the media, and the media might not correctly portray what was being said in the journal because they don't have the same training as scientists who enter this information into the journal. They don't have the same knowledge of what's important and how to interpret results and p-values and things like that. So I think that's one thing that you need to be really careful about. And in order to follow up on this, you should probably look at the actual journal articles to make sure that the results weren't misinterpreted. A side note of something else I found interesting, it said that a heroin user might rely on methadone to alleviate withdrawal, and someone who is addicted to milkshakes should use something like a fruit smoothie to be as an alternative, I guess, in your withdrawal from milkshakes. But I guess it's an interesting point to make too, so that's something funny I read. And one last thing, there is a listed quiz in both the magazine and online, and it's called Are You Addicted to Food? And apparently it uses the Yale Food Addiction Scale. I don't know if this is reliable and valid and normed and everything, but you can use this to see if you fit the criteria for food addiction. It says I'm not, so I guess that I'm in good shape. It might be interesting to find the actual article or articles that use this to see that they're actually portraying the questionnaire and they're not just pulling a couple of questions and seeing what happens. But that's something else I kind of found interesting. So basically that's about it. Yeah, I found that to be kind of relevant to my life. It's not really relevant to anything that I personally want to research, but I am interested in addiction, and I have wondered if there is some sort of something chemically going on when you crave a food. Why wouldn't it be different than someone who is craving heroin or something like that? So that's about it. Thanks, guys. Bye.